Welcome to day 2 of the budget workshops. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the roll?
Supervisor Evans.
Here.
Councilwoman Cunningham. Here. Councilman Malone. Councilman Perticone.
Here.
Councilman Weiner.
Here.
Attorney for the town.
Present.
Okay. Again, for those at home, this is the budget workshops. We'll be meeting with the rest of the town government, the library, recreation, courts, and IT and ICAT. This is an informal meeting, so you'll see more discourse, and it's meant to be informal. And again, for the board members, if you see something that needs to be corrected, the tentative budget is a work in progress until we get to the adopted budget, which is final, to include any letters or any verbiage that you may see. So with that, library. Good evening.
My name is Rachel Snyder. I am the president of the Irondequoit Library Board, and I've been on the library board for 4 years now, and I'm very proud to represent this evening.
All right, we're going to start off with,
I think she needs to use the mic for the
sorry.
Little button. There you
Is
go.
that better?
There you go.
Hi,
You're
sorry,
on.
Rachel Snyder, Irondequoit Public Library Board President.
yeah, we're going to start off with Madam Clerk. Madam Controller, excuse me.
Of course.
Rachel, I just have a brief summary of your budget overall. So
Okay.
so the 2025 library budget is proposed to increase about 3.89%. Expenditure increases of $63,253 are associated with increased salaries and benefit costs, and revenue is also anticipated to decrease by just over $1,000.
Thank you.
You may continue.
Okay, I just prepared a brief statement. So, in past budget cycles, the Irondequoit Public Library Board of Trustees has typically approached the town supervisor and town board with one big ask related to an important project or initiative. Some examples from previous years include the creation of our seed library, the Children and Teen Fine Forgiveness Program, and additional funding for staff training and professional development. This year, the big ask is relating to helping the library become more competitive in retaining our current employees and recruiting new employees for vacant positions in today's job market. This initiative is essential to improving the quality of our library's customer service and workplace culture, and will enable the library to become more competitive in, again, an increasingly difficult market. It also coincides with Supervisor Evans' initiative to raise part-time wages and full-time entry-level salaries, which will bring the library's wages into better alignment with the prevailing wages found in libraries across Monroe County. The Library Board of Trustees is aware of the difficult financial reality impacting the town residents and town government, and consequently, this budget includes strategic reductions in operating costs, as well as the implementation of other cost-saving measures to some of the job titles for vacant positions. Great care has been taken to ensure that no cost reductions or personnel changes will impact public-facing services or diminish our ability to be responsive to community needs. And before I turn things over to Greg to walk the town board through the details, I'd like to thank all of the library staff, Diana Marsh, Jason Vanette, and Supervisor Evans for their role in helping us develop this budget.
Thank you, Rachel, and Town Board, Town Supervisor. This year, the library is requesting just a little bit more than $40,000 over the 2024 budget figure. To minimize the amount of additional funding that is needed in next year's budget, we've identified over $31,000 in cost reductions. This $31,000 figure includes $23,000 in cost reductions resulting from the following personnel changes. A recently vacated Librarian 2 position has been reclassified as a Librarian 1 position, saving $7,000. A portion of funds that had previously been allocated to a part-time Librarian 1 position that was also recently vacated has been reallocated to our substitute librarian budget, saving the town $13,000. And lastly, my salary is being held flat in 2025, saving $3,000 over the customary cost of living increase. An additional $8,500 of cost reductions has been identified in the operating budget lines relating to conferences and training, professional and legal consultations, and supplies for processing new library materials. All three of these budget lines are fluid in nature and can vary from one year to the next. We're confident that the figures that we included in this budget for next year will be sufficient, but it is possible that we may need to request additional funds in those budget lines in some future year. Also included in that $8,500 figure in operating cost reductions are cost reductions identified by the Comptroller and the Commissioner of Public Works relating to the maintenance budget for the library and the utilities budget line. Lastly, before I close out, I want to speak to some of the operational benefits of raising the part-time wages and entry-level salaries. If you reference in this thicker document titled 2025 Library Budget Request Summary, if you reference the second page, there is a chart that compares our library's hourly wages with libraries around the county. So the MCLS average is the Monroe County Library System average. We have here the four part-time job titles that we use, and then the average that those job titles are making across the county. Our employees are making less than the average, and in some cases significantly less. If you look at the charts on page number 3, these charts rank the libraries in order of how much they compensate each job title. And in this chart, it makes it a little bit more clear, kind of the further up the organizational hierarchy at the Irondequoit Library you go, the more apparent the wage disparity between us and the other libraries in the county becomes. This wage disparity negatively impacts staff morale and employee recruitment and retention. The library is currently canvassing for 4 civil service positions that are vacant and 1 position that does not require the applicant to pass a civil service test. These 5 positions represent just over 10% of the jobs at Irondequoit Public Library. The chart on page number 3 the chart on page number 3 indicates what the wages will go up to for each of the affected job titles in the 2025 budget, and then how many people are impacted in those roles. We also have 2 full-time positions that the library board is looking to address. Those are our entry-level full-time positions of library clerk. The salary that you see in the 2025 column brings the hourly wage up to $20 an hour. In total, this will impact 31 of the library's 46 employees and will go a long way to helping us retain the employees that we have and recruit new ones. I did also want to point out that we have done a number of things that have no financial impact to help recruitment and retention, flexible scheduling, occasional work from home opportunities for the full-time staff. These things have all been well received, but in our employee feedback that we receive, the number one thing people point to, particularly for the part-time staff, is the wage disparity that they're seeing in job postings at other libraries in Monroe County. So we hope to address that with the 2025 budget. The remainder of this thicker document goes through the library's 2025 budget line by line, and it indicates whether the budget line is going up or down. Each budget line includes an explanation of what expenses are typically paid out of that budget line, and then a justification for why the budget is going up or down in that particular line. And I know there's quite a bit here, so I'm happy to answer any questions that I can answer. I know Rachel will answer any questions that she can answer. And then if you take a look at this and you have questions later on, you can always email myself. I can loop Rachel in, and I can provide an explanation once you have time to take a look at the budget line by line. The shorter document is just the raw numbers. It's the spreadsheets that we've put together with Diana's help, Jason's help, and just includes the financial figures for each budget line.
I just want to say, as a town manager or town leader, I want to commend your management of the library. It's probably the most used besides the recreation facility that we have. I'm always impressed when, before the door is opening, you have people 20 and 30 thick waiting to get into the library first thing in the morning. So thank you very much, and thanks for the library board for all the work that you do in helping place our town on a different level than the surrounding towns.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Greg, can you we've talked a lot about creative revenue sources. So can you talk about grants and the process for that, and who does that, and that whole process, please.
Certainly. So the library has a bunch of supplementary revenue sources, one of which are state grants, which is probably one of the big ones. We have, for the last few years, received targeted aid from our state-level elected officials, Sammer Brook and Sarah Clerk. Those funds typically go to provide for library programming,
Right.
Storytime, STEM programs. We receive about $10,000 to $15,000 from both of our state-level representatives. This year, we have applied for a grant that we have not heard back about whether or not it has been approved, but we have a high degree of confidence that it will. This is a state grant called the New York State Library Construction Grant. We've applied for $60,000 in funding to help create a dedicated children's programming space in the children's library. That represents half of the cost of the total project, so roughly $120,000. And the other half, it's a matched grant, is being matched by funds that are raised locally by our volunteers on the Irondequoit Public Library Foundation Board. They are an all-volunteer board that raises money for large capital projects. So they've committed to raising another $60,000 to get us across the finish line. This project would represent a significant and very noticeable change to the children's library, and it would come at no additional expense to the local taxpayer. We apply for grants, small and large, whenever we can. We have smaller grants that we've applied for through the state or through private foundations to help pay for things like summer reading programs for kids as well as teens and adults. But by far the best aid that we get is from our volunteer boards, the Irondequoit Public Library Foundation and the Friends of the Irondequoit Public Library, who also raise funds, but for smaller projects like supplies, equipment, and programs that aren't otherwise provided for in the budget.
Yeah, and that's very helpful, and I certainly think about that. I talk a lot about that advocacy piece with our area legislators. So, if there's a way, if you see something down the pike, and we can help out with that, I'm certainly would love to know about that. I would love for us as a board to sit down regularly with our legislators. So I think that this is a piece that we could definitely advocate for. So.
We're very fortunate to have Sarah Clark and Sammer Brook. They both have kids that are library users, and they've been in the library to do things like story times and meet and greets. They've used the library meeting rooms to meet with constituents. One other thing I did also want to point out about our revenue that kind of sets us apart from other libraries in the county. We are the only library in the county that includes the revenue from our bookstore in our revenue budget line. Most of the other libraries, that is an operation of the Friends of the Library, but here in Arundecoit, it goes directly to offset what the taxpayer has to contribute to the library. And that's actually a very helpful, beneficial thing. As you're probably all aware, ebooks are very popular. They become more popular every year. 2020, when the pandemic hit, we saw those numbers skyrocket, well above 20%, and they have not dropped below 20% of our monthly circulation, I believe, in any month since the pandemic. That's great. We're staying relevant. We're meeting our users where they are, which is increasingly on their tablets and smartphones. But the one downside to an ebook is there's no late fees, so there's no late fee revenue. They return themselves on the due date. So the more people gravitate towards the ebooks, there is usually a proportional decrease in revenue from fines and late fees. There is also a trend nationally that is definitely represented well in the Monroe County Library System to reduce fines and fees wherever possible, with the mindset being that that reduces barriers to use for families that might be struggling economically with things like inflation. And a few years ago, the library board initiated a project to eliminate fines and fees for children and teen items. We still have fines and fees for adult items. There's still a fee to place an item on hold if you want it sent in. So we do generate revenue that way. But the overall trend in the industry is kind of away from fine-based revenue.
Do we pay for ebooks?
Yes.
Them in our circulation?
Yes, so we buy licenses for those ebooks out of our book budget. I will say my personal preference is still for the print book, both as a reader, but the print books are actually a better value. We get about a 30% discount on a print book over the list price. So we're paying less per print book than you might pay on Amazon if you're going to buy that same book. That is the opposite for ebooks. They charge libraries a premium to circulate an ebook. So the ebook that you might pay $9.99 for on Amazon, we may pay $50, $60, $70, or in upwards of $100 for, depending on the desirability of that title.
Thank you.
They need to make paper books like vinyl records where you get the digital data for free if you buy the vinyl, but buy the book. Talk to me a little bit about, just talk to the board in general about room rental revenue, or if any.
So we do have some revenue that comes in through room rental. Most people qualify for free room usage. This last year, we had just over 10,000 people use the library for meeting space. Most of those meetings are people just sitting in a room. They want a third place to study. We do charge revenue for people who want recurring events at the library. So, if there's some kind of organization that is not a non-for-profit group and they want to have the same night of the month every month in perpetuity, that would be something that they would pay for. We do also have the option to pay to reserve dates outside of what we call like our free use policy. So if somebody knows 8 months from now they want to have their kid's birthday party at the library, which happens from time to time, or they want to have some kind of private event and they want to be sure that, August 8th they have that room, they can pay a fee to use that. Most of the people that use, though, the library's meeting space are booking it through the free policy. They're either a nonprofit group or it's one of our study rooms. It's just 1 or 2 people studying. Most of them are students or job seekers, I would say, are the 2 biggest groups that are using our meeting space on the second floor. On the first floor, it's primarily library events. And then nonprofit groups in the community that we have partnered with. We have partnerships with Literacy Rochester, Oasis. BOCES has had partnerships with the library. Rochester Works, the Department of Health for the county. And then beyond that, there are a few private groups that choose to either pay or get whatever is available through the free program.
Has there been any thought or progress on that policy, like increasing rates for users that you can charge, or?
The library board recently revised that policy a couple of years ago. The rates were left, comparable to what they were when the building opened. The bottom line is, it's a challenge to charge for that because most of the other libraries in the area don't charge for their meeting room space. So if we put the price point a little bit higher than it presently is, I think most of the people that are willing to pay would, choose to go meet at the Winton Library or the Grease Library or something like that.
I would want to explore other options for driving revenue before I did that, so we don't bar anyone from accessing the library.
Just, utility costs and things are all going up, and
Greg, you have, some of the staff is under collective bargaining agreement, correct? Is it
Correct.
all the full-timers here, the 14, or is it more than that?
Yes, so it's, the full-time staff is represented by a collective bargaining unit. The part-time staff,
Isn't it?
they're
Okay.
not.
And what was the increase, do you know off the top of your head for the?
Off the top of my head, the increase that they'll be receiving next year, I believe, is 3%. The increase that they received going from 2023 to 2024 was 3.5%.
Okay, so it's 3% this year. Okay. And that's your full-timers.
Correct.
To circle back on energy costs that you just brought up, we are exploring how the library will look if we use solar to reduce the costs. So that's an ongoing project. That estimated would save the town between $50,000 and $60,000 if it's feasible to put solar on the library.
Just at the library, it'd be 50, 60,000? Yeah, then you have the upfront costs, and then you gotta
Right.
add that in there too.
So I'm waiting for the engineers to come back with a solution.
Considering a 40,000 square foot building, I think when we built this, I think in general, we were pretty, we estimated the cost per square footage. I think we're pretty good with that. I mean, obviously you could find ways to save money, but when it came to square footage on a 40,000 square foot building, that I think, we're pretty on par with what we thought it was going to be.
Correct, and that's just simply the increased
Yeah.
cost in energy, not the efficiency of the building. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful building, beautiful design.
I know I like it.
I wonder why.
When I was the director at the Gates Library, I used to tell people my favorite building in the county was the Gates Library, and that was only partially true because I actually liked Irondequoit's building better. But now that I'm here, I have a clean conscience, and I can say it's the most beautiful building in the county and actually mean it.
Well, when we toured that building, we wanted to make sure Irondequoit was better than
Yeah.
this one, right?
Well, you did good, you did
Because
good.
we toured that building before we built this one, because it was a nice library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
Good? Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you
thanks
for
very
all
much for
this
your time.
information. Thank you.
Very well reported.
And sealing your format for the rest of the departments, by the way.
Please do. There's a $20,000 surcharge for,
There's your revenue source. There you go.
no, but by all means, it's anyone's to use. We love sharing at libraries.
Thank you. Next, recreation.
It's not fair that you guys make me go after the best library director.
Who's to say you're not the best?
You're right
recreation
there.
director
Come on,
in
Shannon.
County?
But maybe,
You're right there.
maybe he was saying, I'm really glad I'm going ahead of the best recreation director
probably what
in
it
the
was.
county.
Madam Controller?
So the recreation budget includes our senior and nutrition programs. The levy for the recreation department is proposed to decrease by 11.5%, largely due to relocating the utility fees to the building maintenance from the recreation department and increased revenue estimates of approximately $147,000.
Madam Director.
Thank you. So our approach to this year's budget was to look at ways that we could cut expenses kind of across the board, kind of piecemeal, mostly when it came to equipment and supplies, because the last thing we want to do is cut services. We're always looking to increase our services. Along with that, we obviously don't want to lose any of our personnel. We just celebrated our 3rd birthday at the community center, so we're still a relatively new business over there, and we're still kind of learning as we go. And recreation is kind of constantly in flux. You have to really kind of keep up with what's going on in the field from year to year, even month to month. And you kind of have to play it to, what the community is looking for at that particular time. So we really wanted to leave ourselves some flexibility when it came to some of the personnel type of things. So when working with Diana on our budget, we said our goal is to, keep our personnel line pretty similar, because we do need some flexibility to see what's going to happen in 2025. So we were able to make some cuts across the board. Printing and postage was a big one that we were able to take out because we are going to be looking at offering a monthly newsletter digitally, and then also our program activity guides that come out 3 times per year. We are not going to be mailing them to each Arundecoit resident. We are going to give folks an opportunity to opt into the mailing, and then we will have printed copies on hand at the community center, the library, and here at Town Hall. But we will be offering people an opportunity to receive that information digitally, and then obviously posting it on all of our websites, social media, etc. So they should still have a similar level of access, but that would make a pretty significant cut in our expense lines right there. We also, this year, we were very excited that in 2024, we surpassed our summer camp revenue goals by about $50,000 this year. So we're really kind of leaning into summer camp and looking at ways we can expand and grow it. The feedback that we're receiving from parents and kids is that they want more time at camp. So that's what we're doing in 2025. We will make also a small increase in the fees for summer camp, but we're really looking to, utilize that as an opportunity to increase our revenue going into 2025. As everybody here also knows, we are very excited to be onboarding our new recreation supervisor, Chris Chavez, who will be focusing on fitness and athletics programming. So we're really looking to expand a lot of our athletics leagues. Most people know that Arundecoit has the largest senior softball program in Monroe County, and we have the beautiful McAvoy Park that everybody wants to play at. I mean, folks really come from other states to play at our park. So we're also going to be leaning into that this year, and we are going to be looking at ways to change our fee structure and scheduling structure at McAvoy Park as well. And also growing some more softball programming. We're looking at doing adult co-ed leagues this year, and really kind of trying to capitalize on that particular space that is so popular, and also gleaning from what other municipalities nearby are doing, and the co-ed summer leagues are really, really popular. So we're excited to have Chris come on board and kind of help us to flesh that out this year. Also looking at growing our senior golf programming and our women's soccer program that are already existing, and then also looking at some new opportunities moving forward. As everybody here knows, pickleball is a huge deal right now, and Irondequoit is no different with the expansion of potentially some new outdoor courts up at Camp Eastman. It's a great time to also tap into that and really start working on putting together some competitive leagues for pickleball. We also haven't had a supervisor for our fitness center and group exercise offerings, really. No direct supervisor. Megan Hoffman, who's our management assistant, has been so gracious to kind of hold that down over the past couple of years, but we really haven't had someone who could really put some dedicated time into that programming. So we're looking at expanding that as well with Chris coming on board, and he's got some great ideas that we're excited to tap into to grow out our offerings in those areas as well. The library talked, and Peter talked about space rentals and how that looks. So we offer meeting space in the community center. Obviously, we also have the new indoor market building that we will be offering rentals in 2025, so that as well. We are restructuring some of our party packages at the community center, and then also with new cabins and buildings going up at Camp Eastman. That's also going to be hopefully a great revenue bump for us in 2025 as well. So looking forward to all of those things. Memberships, we are interested, we really, I guess I should say this, the approach we're taking is really going to be to revamp our marketing plan for all of these items. To this day, we still have people who come to the community center, or we'll see here at the public market, or the farmer's market, or anywhere around town. And as we're talking about our programs and services, they're still saying, I didn't even realize the community center was over there. I didn't even know these things existed. So we are blessed to have a couple of great folks on our team that are really have an eye for marketing, especially social media presence marketing. So we're really going to be leaning into that and looking for ways to draw in new membership and participation in all of our programs as well. This year, we are also developing a program advisory committee, so we'll be bringing folks in from the community to hear from them on a monthly basis about what it is they're looking for and what we can do to get them into the building and into the program. So we'll be doing that in 2025. And then rounding it out, my team makes it look easy, but it's not. It's a lot of long hours and hard work. It's physical work. It can take a toll. So we are also planning to restructure and revamp our volunteer program in 2025 and bring in more folks in the community who want to be a part of the great things that are going on here and put them to work. So we're excited to be able to kind of expand our reach in that capacity as well.
I think that's a really good point. I think about that every time there's a big event and just what that does to all of you. There are long hours. I totally get that. I'd be interested at the end of the year to see about the mailings, how that impacts the program, especially if people are saying, I didn't know about it, when right now they're getting mailings, because believe me, you know my line of work too, and we're getting the same thing. So it'll be really interesting to see how that impacts.
Yeah.
But certainly driving people to the website is really important. The information is all right there as well. So,
Right.
But some people, especially our older folks, they really love to have that catalog in their hands. But
Right, and we certainly will have those available to folks
absolutely,
who prefer it.
absolutely.
But part of the whole process is to also help educate folks who might not understand how to access the information digitally, et cetera. So we will be offering that support at the community center as well, just to help people gain the knowledge and learn the different tools that they have right there ready for them.
Oh, I understand. I live it. I know.
And to clarify, we're still going to be mailing to 60 and over, correct, as far as the town is concerned?
No, our final activity guide will go out in mid-December, and that will be for the months of January to May 2025. And on the back cover of that activity guide will be an opportunity for folks to opt in if they would like a mailed hard copy. So we'll teach them the steps that they would need to do to get on our mailing list moving forward.
Shannon, you mentioned the increase at the camps this year. What was the main reason, the basis of that increasing? Is it folk,
This year we actually expanded our camp season by a week and a half, so that was a big part of it.
Sure.
But we had 9 camps going on at any given time over the summer for playground programs, 4 programs at Camp Eastman, and then also the Woodcraft program. And so we filled every camp. And like I said, the feedback we received from a lot of the parents was that this is really helpful in terms of, them having access to a program for their kids that would keep them busy later into the summer, as opposed to in the past, we used to end a little bit earlier after the first week in August, but
and
we've expanded.
if I'm not mistaken, they don't go home for lunch anymore, correct? They stay
Absolutely
right there?
not. Yes,
Okay, that was a
they
good
stay
one. I
on
think
site.
that was a good thing. The other thing is, how is the ride service with the bus? Is it,
Yeah,
good
it's
participation?
Yep,
Yeah.
we offer the lunch transportation program 2 days a week each week, and then we have offerings for other trips, programs, etc., all throughout each
Okay.
month. We have not received, the real kind of request for more transportation for lunch. But actually right now, Carmen, who is our recreation supervisor that works with our senior programming, she is actually in talks with several of the agencies in town where the elder care agencies about how we can partner and get them over to the community center for our programs, and then also share information about what they have going on in their spaces. So we're always looking for more ways to take advantage of having that tool at our fingertips, and it's been a great experience so far. In 2025, we will have at least one structured field trip for the seniors. The last one that we went on last month, we went to, we took them shopping at the Outlet Mall in Geneva, and we went to this really cute little cheese shop out there where they got to do some wine tasting and sample some cheeses, and they just loved it and said, when can we do this again? So it's even simple things like a fall foliage tour, or the Christmas light tour, things like that's what we're really kind of leaning into. And we're really finding that the folks that participate in our lunch program and the transportation for the lunch program are usually not the same ones who want to participate in those field trips. So it's interesting to learn, but it's also pretty cool because it just means our reach is expanded to more people. It's not the same concentrated group that's doing everything. So that's why we also are excited to get some of those folks on our program advisory committee to learn about, A, what is it that you want to do, and B, how do we reach the folks who we haven't reached yet? Because we don't want anyone to go hungry, obviously. We don't want anyone to feel isolated in their homes when we have this opportunity right here for them. And the other day, I remember on one of the town, not Town of Irondequoit, not our sponsored social media pages on Facebook, but one that's an outside group put together, there was a woman who had said, hey, I would really like to look at how can I get together with other women in my age group so that we can socialize and spend some time getting to know each other. So I said, come to the community center. How can we help? What can we do? And she actually called me today. So, we're trying to just really make sure people know we're here and that they can reach out to us if there's anything we can do to help give them the resources they need, and just the opportunity to socialize is the biggest thing.
That's good. Well, I've noticed, I go there in the morning, and I've noticed, once summer's over, the traffic starts to pick up quite a bit, and that's everywhere, all the gyms and that, but it's getting busy again there with the pickleball and the track. The gym's busy in the morning now too, so it's, once Labor Day's over, the traffic returns. So
Right.
yeah, it's busy there in the morning, which is good.
In the summer, we're busier off-site.
Yeah, right, exactly.
At camp, at McAvoy, events, et cetera. During the school year and the colder weather months, that's when the community center really starts.
Absolutely.
Starts picking up.
Okay, doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. For many years before you joined, I felt like we were spinning our wheels out there with the Swiss Army knife where we're only using the fork, and now we're really using all of those functions out there and really, utilizing the facility to the best way. And I love your imagination, your staff's creativity, and, the implementation of the things that you had in your brain when we were interviewing you and now are being implemented in the field.
Thank you. I have a great team beside me. I mean, they make it look easy. I mean, it's just the credit goes to all of them, honestly, so.
Yeah, the ones in the Sarah in the morning, and they're great. They're good with the people. They really are. They're really good with the people when they come in, and Sarah's the first one you see in the morning.
Right. And that's what we've been focusing
Yeah.
on, is really building the sense of community
Yeah.
in our
Well,
community.
she does a good job. She really does.
Well, I
I'm
think
so
that
glad-
Tell her I said that, okay?
I certainly will.
Nicer to me in the morning.
I think the change in venue, I think that has changed the overall feel, which there's a lot of pride. But I think you're really on point with trying to get at those that, where are they? Who else should we include? The Surgeon General a couple years ago came out with a report on the impact of social isolation. It's like smoking 15 cigarettes a day if people are isolated. So I think you're really on target trying to reach as many people as we can and bring them in.
Thank you very much, and I don't need to commend you. I feel about you. You've done a great job this year, and to all your whole staff, from all of us, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
All right. And now we move to ICAT and IT. Sorry,
No, it's
excuse
court.
me, courts. As I said yesterday, reading is fundamental, right? Good evening. Madam Controller?
Thank you. So the court's 2025 budget is proposed to increase by about 9.1%. The primary reason for the increase is in the salaries category, as a position was restored in the 2025 budget. Revenues are also anticipated to increase about 3.9%.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have had an opportunity to review the budget. I actually do have a couple of questions. I don't know if it's okay if I ask them. I spoke briefly with Diana this afternoon because I had a question regarding our personnel, and I just want to clarify exactly what we're doing with the personnel, because we replaced, not replaced, but we reinstated, I guess is the best way to put it, our deputy court clerk. And we're still showing the same number of personnel, which is a little confusing to me. When I spoke with Diana, we talked about the fact that one of our part-time clerks is being classified as a court attendant, and I have no issue with that. I just want to figure out, I guess, in the budget where the money is coming from, because I see in our part-time regular hours, if we only have one part-time clerk, it shows $44,000. And our guards, if we're increasing from 5 guards to 6, the line item is actually decreasing by $3,000 a year, which is confusing to me. I also had a question regarding, and this is just my ignorance, so I'm asking for some clarification as to exactly what the personnel item 510400, which I believe is personnel and board's regular hours, I'm assuming that part of the court budget is to pay for the board's salaries?
Now, that line item, the 10400, are for the 3 justices.
Okay.
They're elected officials, so they're considered a board for purposes of the budget. And as far as the question regarding the part-time versus the guards, I see the correction was made in the staffing numbers in the budget, but we still have the 1 guard listed under part-time instead of guard. So I can make that correction and just move that part-time position down to guard, so it'll reflect 1 part-time and 6 guards.
Okay,
The money's in there, it's just in the wrong items.
okay. I just had a question about that.
Well, we also had a conversation earlier, just remind me, that our guard pay was way down. Are we increasing the guard pay, or are we keeping it the same for right now?
I don't have the numbers in front of me. It's increasing slightly. It's not increasing as high as the court had requested.
And I, we were more concerned about reinstating the deputy court clerk, so we were, not going to argue that point at all with the court guards.
And just for the people at home, we have 2 armed guards.
We
And how many armed guards we have?
We have 3
3 armed guards.
armed guards and 2 unarmed guards.
And when you compare their pay across the county, we're substantially lower for the amount of risks that they take. And so just to clarify what the issue is.
So Diana, are the increase that we're getting in our armed guard salary, or in our guard salary, is that for the armed guards only? Or is that at the discretion of the court?
I apologize, Sally, I didn't bring the, you should have gotten the sheet from Jason, the
I haven't-
personnel sheet.
I haven't, the only
I
thing,
didn't bring my copy.
yeah, the only thing I've received is this, which I got from you, I believe.
I can review that and get back to you. I don't want to
Okay.
misspeak.
That would be
So
great.
I will email you with that information or give you a call.
Thank you. I wasn't intending to put you on the spot, but I haven't received anything from Jason regarding personnel.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Madam Controller?
Thank you. So the information technology budget includes the ICAT budget. Overall, an increase of 0.89% is proposed within this budget. An increase in services and supplies category is primarily due to the centralization of software maintenance for all the town departments, and this increase is partially offset by a reduction in equipment.
You can start with ICAT and then go to IT.
Okay, the ICAP budget has mostly just been continuously reduced year over year. And that's just kind of the nature of the ICAT, the function of ICAT. It's just things have moved more to social media than long format filming. So we've just more prioritized getting out there and filming the events as they're happening and the board. So that now for ICAT, we'll just be focusing on that. And also there will be a budget or a project this year that ICAT will be coming to the board with for renovation of the Broderick Room sound system. I know you guys are well familiar with that. It's something that's needed, so we'll be going out to RFP for that for 2025. But that isn't reflected in the budget. It's just something that will be brought to the board directly.
Any questions or comments? IT?
IT finds itself in a little bit of an interesting situation this year. After years, 4 years, the infrastructure build out, I can say, is finally done. So we've dropped the project line for the IT part next year. That doesn't mean that there won't be projects. Particularly, we're looking at modernizing the code and compliance software. That's something that's needed. And we also are starting to pursue grants, like we're document grant we're pursuing for the state to digitize all the paper for the town and move in that direction. And also for any projects, we'll be, again, coming to the board, and those will be more targeted. Along with 2025, I'll be working with the comptroller to come up with a life cycle for what we have invested in over the past 4 years, so we don't find ourselves in a position where we're playing catch up again. I think that should be its own line item next year, and it should be something that's maintained, that will allow us to maintain the equipment we have invested in. Other than that, another thing that was focused on for IT this year was for Garrett to make sure bringing him up to a comparable pay schedule. IT is a competitive field, and it consists of 2 people. So if I lose one, I lose 50% of my department. So it's kind of important to make sure he was brought up to a kind of an appropriate level.
And I just want to address that for, we have over 300 people in the town, and we should have a larger IT manning, but we only have 2 or 2.5 people to man an IT department. Any other world will have between 6 and 10 people. So that's where we at as far as IT is concerned, and that's mainly for the people at home who are wondering why bringing one of our workers up to a comparable pay schedule is important. Any other questions?
No, but just, Kevin, thanks, because I know that, when you started here, we were way behind the 8, you know what I mean? So when you just said, it's 4 years later, but now we don't want to go back to where we once were, but I agree with that 100%. Let's stay on top of this and continue, because, when you started, thank you and for all that, because I know it was a lot of work, but 4-year project. I know. Okay, well, thanks for that. I think people do appreciate it, but we just want to make sure we don't go back.
Yeah.
There probably wasn't a system that we had here that wasn't aged beyond support, including some of the wire infrastructure, right?
Security, remember security and all that too, all that stuff. So
there wasn't a single system we haven't touched.
Yeah.
And now all the buildings talk to each other. We've unified a lot of the systems, like access control and cameras and that sort of stuff. It's been a road, but we got there. So, and it was through support of yours. So, you guys approved the budget every year, so it was great.
And we haven't even budgeted out security systems that we need an upgrade on, and also an upgrade to make our web portal more accessible and easier to use. But that's next year's problem.
True.
okay.
I appreciate that you're videoing our events, the flag raising the other day, just for people to be able to see all of the things that we're doing. And it's accessible, we can find it on social media, we can find it on YouTube, so I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And is, sorry, go ahead.
I think you
Yes, you can do it. Yep, sure. You can.
Okay, so next we have the town clerk, and the town clerk also includes tax collection and records management. Overall, the levy for the town clerk is proposed to decrease by almost 9%. The town clerk expenditures are anticipated to decrease by about 7.5%, and revenues are proposed to increase by about $12,000, which is almost 30, or just over 36%, as we're looking at the fee schedules and making changes.
So, in the clerk's office, we did a little research and we noticed that our fee schedule hadn't changed for several years. So, we're restructuring that or adjusting that to increase the revenue for the department. And we were cut a position, a part-time position, so that allowed us to have a little room to work with. We need to hire a clerk in the department, so that's what we're looking for now. But everything else, the budget is pretty stable.
this is a really minor amount to the budget, but on hunting and fishing licenses, now that it's gone to a more online fishing license and such, hunting license, is that still something that people?
So during the month of October, well, I shouldn't say the month of October, month of September, we're extremely busy with hunting and fishing license. People still come in and want the books and things like that, so they do purchase the hunting and fishing licenses. It slows down in October, but it will get busy back in November 1st with hunters coming in for other doe permits.
I didn't even think you could buy them except for online anymore, but
So one of the key is Dick's used to sell them. A lot of the local organizations
tackle places
no
don't.
longer.
Yeah.
So where the town is probably one of only that actually issues these now, and a lot of the fishermen and hunters want to come in person to purchase them because a lot of them are older and they want the physical interaction.
I liked it because the day I go fishing, I can get my license, the digital, because I always forget.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Okay, receiver of taxes.
So in the budget, that includes everything for those 3 areas of the town clerk. So it would include the clerks, the tax office, as well as records management. There hasn't been any major increases in any of the areas. Pretty much stable across the board.
Thank you. And any other questions? Mr. Director? Good afternoon,
Hello.
Madam Controller.
Thank you. So the Neighborhood and Business Development Department is responsible for the fire marshal, code enforcement, removal of violations, and planning and zoning functions. The total levy is expected to increase 11.74% for these functions. The primary reason for the increase is the reduction of expected revenue. Within the code enforcement function, revenue is expected to decrease approximately $50,000. This reduction more accurately reflects the current collections.
Mr. Director?
Yeah, I think I'm the last to go here, so I won't belabor too much, but I want to talk about a couple of things. and also address that last comment there. Collective metrics for this year, because I'd like to recognize the efforts of the employees in my department, who I'm happy to work with and proud of the work that they do every day. We did 740 building permits, and this is as of October 1st. That's an 11% increase from last year. Over 1,100 code enforcement complaints have been investigated to date. That's a 3% increase over 2023. This might not sound like a big number, but we've had 7 new single-family homes constructed in town. And looking at our statistical data, which the historical data is not totally accurate, but it's the most I can see since 2015. And I know of 2 more houses that are looking to be built. So, like I said, it doesn't sound significant, but that is a kind of an important thing to think about. In terms of the revenue discussion there with the decrease in 50,000, it's not an actual decrease in revenue. It's an accurate representation of what we can expect to see. Looking back at the budget numbers in the past, this is looking at a 5-year average. And, our biggest source of revenue is permit revenue for construction projects. That is a wildly difficult thing to try to forecast. It is dependent on someone coming to us with a project. We can't necessarily solicit it. There's only so many fences that can be built. So that number, we've tried to come up with what's most accurate to budget properly.
Any questions?
Bill, just run me through the process right now. If your code enforcement goes out, right, and you have a grass issue, right? Obviously, you let the homeowner know, they have, time to fix their wrong there. What is the process if they don't do it?
Yeah, so
Run me
grass
through the
complaints, they're one of our biggest, complaints that we receive in the code enforcement department. Generally, what happens is we will receive a complaint from either electronic or phone. It's investigated within 1 business day, if not sooner, usually same day if we can do it. If we find that it's in violation of Chapter 94, which is the code that deals with grass, weeds, etc., we would send out a violation notice to that person at their last known address. They have 7 to 10 days. Usually we err on the side of a little bit of leniency with 10 days. We'll go out and do another inspection. If it hasn't been cut at that point, we will order it to be cut. And at this point, it's done by the Department of Public Works.
So you contact the Department of Public Works.
Yeah.
And you tell them address whatever it is that needs to be cut.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they go out and they cut it.
Yep.
Right, and then now, we don't know how many trips you did this year though, do you know? I know that.
I don't have the number just yet. I know on a monthly basis during prime grass growing season, we're between 70 to 90 complaints.
Right.
Not all of those are, a founded complaint.
Okay.
So you're looking at probably 50 to 60 a month during prime grass growing season.
Okay, 50 to 60 a month. Okay, so out of that, now, what I saw in your budget here, my understanding is you're gonna put an RFP out to take care of that grass cutting situation?
Yeah, so during budget discussions and even previous to that, the Department of Public Works, in conversations with the supervisor's office and my office, has indicated that it might be in our best interest to go out to bid for this service. And then, the forecasted expenses and revenues try to accurately represent what that would look like, which would be about the same amount of revenue because we're looking at really the same amount of complaints historically. But a decrease in the expense to my department by using a third party.
Yeah. I don't know how other people feel, but we cut grass. I don't know, we went through this, you weren't here, we went through this before, we had a private contractor come out, do it, it didn't work out. We brought it back to the DPW, we bought equipment, and now we're going back. So we cut grass. This is my opinion. I don't agree with it. I think we should be doing it in-house. I don't know why. I don't know what it's going to cost to do an RFP. I don't remember. We'd have to look that up. I don't remember what it was when we outsourced it. You know what I mean? But, and then I see that, there's a couple of, there's a couple of job openings in DPW. So we're taking work away, but yet we have a couple spots to hire. So it just doesn't, just doesn't seem right, that's all. I think we should do this in-house, but that's my opinion.
And that's why what we're going to do, beginning of next year, is look at how we structured as a town, because we keep running into these issues where, when you look at historically, we were doing something, then we stopped doing it, then we started again. So that leaves the question, and Bill and I have talked about it. Are we really structured correctly to handle the issues of the town? Because it should be where, you're right, we should continue doing a thing, and instead we keep starting and stopping. So that means that something is broken in how we're structured. So we want to take researching ways to engage a consultant in how we're structured compared to the workload that we do have. And then we'll come back to the board with, here's what our findings are. We're overstaffed here, understaffed here, we're not addressing X, Y, and Z. Because we should be able to continue with small adjustments as opposed to the start-stop method of management.
I mean, I would say too, I was a part of those discussions when we went to grass, that we used to outsource grass cutting. And then when we took that away from the contractors, which a lot of them were Arundecoit businesses, they were like, well, we took a lot of pride in doing this work. Now we don't have this revenue source. And we're like, no, we're going to do it in-house. We can do it better. We can do it faster. We can do it cheaper. And now we're going back out again. And, we did invest a lot in equipment. Some of the equipment, was expensive and, sold, single use for certain things. And now we're just going back and saying we're not doing it.
And I don't know, again, we don't know the number, but to cut a lawn, they just do the front lawns, right? I mean,
For the most part, yeah.
I feel like the town should be more responsive to the needs of these, rather than, then we have to cut a requisition and get it to somebody else, the outside contractor, then follow up to see if they did it. I mean.
Yeah, I've gone out to some of the cutting the whole lawn, not just the front lawn.
Yeah. And I know this year, nothing got cut till probably the middle of June for whatever reason that was, if they didn't want to do it or whatever it was. By middle of June, I mean, most people cut their grass 8-10 times by then, what I mean? I know grass is an issue.
I think it was at the end of May.
Yeah, it's an issue, that grass is an issue, but, I just think we did it in-house for so long, we went back out, it didn't work, we brought it back in-house, like Pete said, we bought new material, equipment, we probably even staffed it, and now we're taking it away, and we still want more staff at the DPW. I still don't think we should need staff at the DPW if we're taking away work. So,
I agree with that.
Mr. Supervisor, when do you expect to take a look at the organizational structure?
We're looking at the beginning of the year. Right now, we're researching how to pay for it first.
Right, and I think that's a great idea, but I agree with Peter and John that, I'd hate to see us go out for an RFP before doing that, before looking at the structuring. And I agree, the back and forth. I think let's make a decision and stick with it. If it had been decided that it was better to keep it in-house, then we need to keep it in-house.
I mean, and, we're talking about cutting people's front lawns. I mean, it's not you know what I mean? It's just not, we're not asking anything out of the ordinary. We cut grass, it's front lawns, so that's my opinion, that's all. And again, I don't know what, we'll have to look to see what we paid last time out when we outsourced it. I have no idea, so I don't recall what that number was, but I know the equipment probably cost more than it cost to outsource for a while anyway, so.
Yeah, the cost that I, tried to guesstimate at
Yeah,
is based
I know.
on other municipalities around us, what they are being charged by their RFP contractors for this. And I'll acknowledge this is a unique challenge because I'm looking at it from the perspective of I'm trying to provide the best service to the complainants because they have legitimate complaints that violate town code. However, this involves, other portions of the town, you know, at the end of the day, I'm just looking to provide the best service and the most responsive one,
Sure,
so.
right, exactly. But I can't imagine the response got to be a lot quicker, just calling DPW, say, hey, go to 123 and cut the lawn.
I mean, if we're getting 50 to 60 complaints, legitimate complaints a month, it seems like you could have a lawn mowing crew that all they do every day.
Yeah, that's
or,
all they do. And it's a
mow.
revenue, it's not a good revenue stream, right? But it's a revenue stream.
I mean, and that's, just keep in mind, that's like late April, May,
Right.
June, and then,
I
you know, really
understand.
drops off.
Yeah, and then it's,
Yeah.
And, then what's the administrative cost? Or are we going to be able to capture all the time you have to spend administering an outside contractor,
Yeah.
which is a lot of times hard to capture that cost, part of the revenue.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll peel that onion back and bring you the solution that we come up with.
we'll discuss it before.
And because we go to an RFP doesn't mean that we have to issue it, just getting the information.
Well, we'll discuss it throughout. We still have to finalize the budget. I mean, we'll have to see, I'm just not in favor of doing it, outsourcing it, that's all. When we have the staff to do it, that's all. So,
Yeah, I just had a couple questions relative to the budget. It's my first process, so forgive me if I'm new. I did make a couple requests for some staffing changes as I look to provide the best customer service we can to the town. They're not reflected in this budget. I was just curious if there was, kind of some feedback on that. I had looked to convert a couple part-timers to a full-time, along with a more appropriate job title for one of our clerks that oversees our planning and zoning.
so right now, obviously, we all know Mary's retiring.
Correct.
We approved that Lydia's gonna move into her position, right?
Yes, correct.
Now, what's Lydia's position? What's her title?
She's the assistant building
Okay,
inspector.
are
so
you gonna replace another assistant building inspector?
We would look to post that.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be at step one, and Lydia was obviously, above and beyond
Yeah,
that, so
yeah.
there's a small,
Yeah,
savings
she's worked
there.
hard to get to where she is, Lydia. She's
Certainly.
put the time in, so
Yep.
that's good. I have a lot of confidence that she'll move right in there. So you're gonna look to replace her job?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Let's look at the full-time and part-time. I thought we made those changes. Let's look at that tomorrow and we'll make the adjustments and come back to the board with it.
Oh, yeah, so you wanna convert 2 part-timers to a full-timer?
Two of our clerks currently are part-time. They alternate mornings and afternoons.
Okay.
And, from an efficiency perspective and a customer service perspective, it's not something that's in the best interest of providing that level of service that I think should be expected. It's not anything against those two people. They're great. There's just gaps in time where it just doesn't work the way it needs to work.
So you're gonna have to, if this goes forward, you're gonna have to choose which one to keep? How's that gonna work?
We'll make a discussion.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
I don't know that either would be interested,
Right.
but, that's one of them. And then, like I said, the other was an appropriate job title for somebody who's doing a job function that has a civil service classification.
Okay. As far as your staff?
Yeah.
Confident, especially as going out and doing building inspections and stuff?
Yeah.
That type of thing?
We are fully staffed now. Obviously,
Okay.
Mary's departing, there
Right.
would be an opening there, but we have been fully staffed for about 3 months. It has worked very well.
Mm-hmm.
We have great people in those positions now, and I think if you haven't heard from constituents out in the community, they're people who are really connecting, with our residents, and probably with each of you throughout the projects they're working on. So I'm
'Cause I know
very happy with what we've
you got a new staff there.
Yeah.
Just about everybody, well, pretty much.
But they're very well qualified.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
The other thing that the other thing I want to point out, mainly for the people at home, is that when you compare the wages again of the quality of people that we have, the staff that works for Bill is way under what the rest of the county is, and so going forward, we want to look at. My goal is to equalize that as much as possible for their qualifications.
I do want to commend you a bit for turning that department around. I think, there was a lot of updates that needed to be done, and I think you led those efforts, and I think you do have us in, commend yourself for putting us in a good position moving forward.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
The other question I have, what is our line item now for Labella, our town engineer? I mean, we've probably backed off quite a bit since you got in there, correct? I mean, you do need them for things, but not as much,
Yeah,
I would think.
I think that's a complicated question, only
Okay.
that they have multiple line items where we draw from. So some of it is site plan review related, of which that's reimbursed. So those costs are basically a net zero. In terms of what it would cost us to have a comparable town engineer, we are significantly below what it would cost us to have a qualified engineer on staff in person. We still utilize them for some planning and zoning purposes, of which we have a number of highly complex projects currently that require that type of service. We also have solicited them for a number of outside of the purview of norm projects, like rewriting the code, LWRP, work with the DEC, and all that was, unknown before this year, but it's stuff that we need to utilize their services for.
Okay. And the question I have here too is, I know between the DPW and Labella, they are working on ARPA, okay? Time and material. I have not to see any carve out what their hours and what they're charging back for the working on the ARPA project. So all the Labella hours, I'm assuming, I have yet to see. I'd like to see what their hours that they're using on the ARPA funds, and it shouldn't be coming out of anybody's pocket. And the same thing with DPW, and
Yeah, I think.
Andre, we've
I
been
think-
asking for a time and material of the DPW on the ARPA funds, and you always ask how much is left. Well, I want to find out how much we're spending on those before we know what the final number is, because we have yet to see a detailed time and material for our staff as well as Labella's staff as well, too.
Yeah, I think most of the stuff for Labella is covered under their contract with us, so there's not a separate
But I know, but
charge.
they're working on the ARPA project. Shouldn't we be, carving that out? You know what I mean?
I think that comes under their contract, if I understand
Well,
correctly.
Yeah. I know, because everybody's always concerned, we're gonna get audited. Well, if we're getting audited, then those Labella hours, we should know what they are on the ARPA funds. That's all I know. And the same thing with the DPW, time and material. They're doing a lot of work on ARPA projects, and I'd like to know what it is, that's all.
Yeah, of the invoices that we receive from Labella, they do have text-based notifications on what they're working on. It's not broken down into sections. I've asked them to rework their invoicing so that we can actually see a breakdown. Now, of that, I don't know that a lot of the ones we receive mention ARPA, but it's something.
Well, that's what I mean. It shouldn't be coming out of your department, the monies,
Yeah.
So, that's all. But we've been asking for this, or I'd like to see a detailed time and material, especially for our staff as well as Labella too, what they're spending on the ARPA funds, because our balance in the ARPA project, our balance right now, it would reflect that balance if we know what we're spending, so.
I will say, my day job, as an architect, I do a lot of public municipal work, and there's a lot of times when the municipality will self-perform work on those particular projects, and those municipalities will separate those time out and associate it with the project that's being worked on. I know staff, works 40 hours, whether they're working at this, that, or the other thing, but I do agree with John, that if we could allocate some of these things towards, the ARPA-funded projects, that it would benefit us in the long run, because, we're up against it with some of our.
Because they do work on
salaries and
projects, and,
expenses.
it all started when we did this all started when we did the new DPW department, that we took away some work from the site contractor. So there was a line item there,
Yeah,
how
I'll-
much, the savings that we,
if
it wasn't, it's not free, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Doing
I'll get
paving or.
I'll get you that
concrete
line item in the breakdown.
Yeah.
I didn't know it existed, I just don't have it here.
Yeah, well, I know,
So-
but I would like to see it, because I think your department, and it should be budgeted on the projects that are going on right now, what the DPW's doing. I see him working on these projects all the time, as well as the engineer too, so.
Right, and that's going to impact us a couple of years down the line when the funding is gone.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
so, if we're gonna use the funds, let's use them now and save some of our departments, that's all. Okay, I'm done.
Any other questions or comments?
No. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, appreciate all you've done.
And I think, do we have anyone else?
There's no further departments. Just if the board has any additional questions about the budget overall, now that they've heard the presentations from the departments.
Well, the one question, the guards, I just let it, you know what I mean? I don't know what it is. There's an increase in pain in the guards.
Yeah, well, one of the
You know,
questions with it.
The armed guards.
Yeah,
that
the
we're
armed
talking
guards.
about, right? And what'd
Well-
you say, there's 3 or 4 of them?
Well, the armed guards are underpaid and the regular guards are underpaid.
Right.
So we had a discussion about maybe, in the beginning, increasing their pay so they come up comparable, so we don't lose them. And, yeah, so those are one of the things that we had a concern about.
Okay, because Sally didn't know what they were. This is just a question, excuse me, that I have.
I mean, I have a couple of general comments. First, I really, want to commend everyone for putting together a budget I thought was, very well thought out and very well represented to the board, and how we got to where we're at. And I still, in looking at the overall budget, I'm still a little bit concerned about the long-term health of our, revenues and budgets. And, our revenue stream is not per se increasing. Our expenses are certainly, increasing. We talked, about the fact that, retirements and things like that are a significant portion of our budgets that we can't even affect. But, staff and equipment, if we keep relying on, fund balance to, which I think last year we were $1.8 million of fund balance we use. That's close to correct. This year we're looking to, use the same. I really think that we need to go back to people and really get that closer to less than what we're proposing that we're doing now. And I know that's going to be extremely difficult. Or we need to start to look at increasing revenue streams. And I completely agree with your supposition about some efficiency studies. We absolutely need to do that. And I see things that we're doing that we're contradicting, when we just talked about grass cutting as one thing. I mean, we've increased tree cutting and trimming and equipment for all that. And I don't disagree with all that necessarily, but, I just can't see this flip-flopping all the time back and forth from one side to another, which I just think is causing, great inefficiency. And, I don't want to pick on DPW, but it is, a big amount of equipment and personnel. I think we really need to look at that and what we're doing and how we're doing it. And if there's any way we can ratchet back the fund balance transfer, I think that we need to start to consider that.
All right, well, we cut as much as we could possibly cut in all areas. Also, we're increasing revenues for everything, fines, fees, usage for everything. We've gone up to the max. There are some things that, for example, like garbage haulers or waste haulers, we were told that it was a waste, that it was a New York state limit. It's not a New York state limit. So we're looking at every line item that we can increase revenues. The problem comes in past negotiations for wages where we agreed to increase one union's wages, which makes up for about $1.6 million of increase for this year. So that's the offset that we had to do. We're retiring a lot of debt this year. So in place, we're adding less debt, but we're shifting a lot of the costs to long-term debt rather than coming out of the general fund. So I think it's unrealistic to always keep everything flat all the time as things increase. So Diana and I sat down and looked at the numbers, and we have to do at least a penny every year just to stay ahead of inflation. Actually, it's between 1 and 10 cents a year, just to stay ahead of inflation and ahead of costs. And then if there is a year where we overcollect, we turn that back in a form of a tax stabilization fund. I know that's not a pleasant thing to say or do, and it's not a politically wise thing to say or do, but it's a necessary thing to say or do if you want to be fiscally responsible.
And I do think we have done a better job of updating some of our fees and things like that over the recent past, but we need to continually look at that. And I know, we're talking about, short-term rentals, if there's a potential revenue stream from
Yeah, I
that.
thought about
really-
that too, Peter.
we're going to really have to seriously think about, the potential for a revenue stream from that, if we even allow them within the town,
Sure.
assuming that we,
Yeah,
in some way,
whatever
shape,
we
or form.
decide.
Even our rental registry of houses, and vacant properties, and our maintenance of vacant properties, and things
Correct.
like that, it's all,
We don't have a revenue stream for registered rentals, just rentals. Short-term rentals, we are talking about an income stream from that. Part of rewriting the code is looking at how to convert some of these massive parking lots into developments to create more new revenue streams. Again, looking at all line items and upping the fees and costs from everything from the clerk's office to the fines that we charge, increasing the fines for grass cutting. I'm looking at almost doubling it in some cases. Getting a handle on zombie homes and vacant properties, recapturing those, returning them back onto the tax rolls. So we're looking at a number of these things, and hopefully in the beginning of the year, be able to lay out a comprehensive plan of what's available.
Well, these are things we have to address because, like Pete said, when you're using fund balance, January 1st, you're in the hole already. You know what I mean? You're in the hole by whatever that amount is, especially this year. So we got to make that up.
Well, the good news for this year is that we're actually over fund balance. So the fund balance that we have used is actually most of our wealth versus going below the 20%.
and first off, using fund balance, which is in essence a bit of surplus, is probably a good use of taxpayer money that they've already paid into.
To keep
And if
their
there's
taxes
I
down.
don't think we're getting out of whack with where we should be. We can't keep,
It's not sustainable.
And,
it's not sustainable.
and because we have a great investment year, and a downward year is my concern, because when the market does a downturn, now we're way behind. So my goal is to get ahead of that a little bit by hedging up both the levy and also maybe the rate that's paid, regardless if it's an assessment year or not, so that we can at least maintain the inflationary rate.
We talk about wages and benefits obviously for our employees. That's what you want to do. But when healthcare goes up 13%,
Right, yep.
we know their wages aren't going up 13%. But
Right.
That's
And revenues aren't going up 13%.
Yeah, so that's an increase to their healthcare that we do pay some of that increase. We take that in-house and they pay the percentage of that. So, but yeah, that's a tough one to stay
It is.
ahead of, the healthcare.
Yeah, and we are.
I don't think it's going to change next year either.
Yeah, we are looking at the offerings that we have for healthcare, and if there is a better plan to go to that saves the town money. I know that for our retirees, we can't change that contract, but everything else that we can adjust and maximize as far as costs.
Like we talked about last night, we have an obligation to our retirees. Obviously, it is what it is. But to move forward, we just got to find. But you want to make sure people are covered too, that they have the proper health care. But it's a challenge.
Sure.
It's just a challenge. And I don't see a change in the future. It's going to be in those teen numbers, and so those are going to be big challenges.
Yep.
Wages and benefits, but. I think we've been doing a good job. People want quality of life, public safety. I mean, those are things we concentrate on. We don't never want to lose any kind of our, any of our services to our folks. So we just try, but I'm glad that, I agree with Pete too. The fund balance is a good way that's what it's for. It's
We
for
may not-
One of the things, I'm
balance.
sorry.
No, I was going to say, we may not be able to reduce it, that use this year. But I think if we make a commitment moving forward that we're going to really try and look at creative revenue sources, that's what we talked about. I'm sorry, Mr. Supervisor, that I cut you off, but I don't know that I'm going to be here at the table next year. But if I am, one thing that I would love that we do is back up a little bit. I would really love us to have a conversation before the budgeting process begins to kind of look at parameters. What are our parameters around the budget moving for that year? And then I would also love, last night we talked about the 5-year plan and the DPW. They have an idea of what their needs are moving forward. If all of our departments had a 5-year plan, so then we can take a look at our 5-year budget and how some of these constraints impact us moving forward.
And that's the exact instruction I gave my department heads to list the forecast within 5 years where we're going. I'll be releasing a new strategic plan in a few weeks to look at where I think the town should be heading, in my opinion. And they'll draw a 5-year plan from that, equipment use, personnel, etc. And then that'll be adjusted again once we get the analysis. One of the things I do want to start doing, I'll start bringing before you, for example, we're paying for the ambulance, townwide ambulance, out of a budget. I'm interested in doing an ambulance district. So therefore, that would be a direct cost per household, and that won't be a budget item for us. Very much like the special districts are. Looking at if one neighborhood needs X, Y, and Z, that's carved out as a special district for that neighborhood, so that it doesn't become a budget item for someone who may have never used that neighborhood. So there's different mechanisms that are used throughout the state that I want to bring into Irondequoit so that we can reduce the cost to all our residents and focus on the special districts and special uses for neighborhoods and for different systems. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, special districts like that, it's just like, which pocket are you taking the money out of? And we do have to be careful. I can see pros and cons to that. It's not technically in our budget, but then becomes its own budget that people need to pay taxes for. I mean, much like our fire districts, which, people talk a lot about. We kind of have that divider out, the dollar bill, on how much goes here, there, and other. And, you see in a lot of municipalities, people complaining about those type of districts and the things that the cost of those, and that it's not something we control. But it does take it from one place and put it in another. And the thing is that I do agree that ambulance service in every municipality needs to be addressed as a cost. And I do think, we did make an effort to keep Irondequoit ambulance in Irondequoit and functioning by our outreach to them. And they've been very good with us and to the town. But we do, ambulance service is absolutely almost at a crisis mode throughout.
It's a necessity as well, too, so to help
It's
them out,
essential service.
Yes.
Yeah, so by creating a district just for the ambulance, I think we can save the ambulance service, have a dedicated resource for Irondequoit, but spread the cost out a little bit differently. With 22,000 households, we're looking at between $5 and $20 of cost. We can supplement it, but it won't be the full charge.
Okay.
Good. I make a move that we can have a motion to close the budget workshops.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
The budget workshops are
And
closed.
Excuse me, we're back here Monday night at 4 o'clock. The 21st, right? That's Monday?
Monday afternoon.
Yep.
Monday afternoon,
I'm
4 o'clock.
so worried I'm going to miss one of these meetings.
So, just so I
Thank
know. Monday at 4 o'clock. Okay. All in favor, right?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The budget workshops are closed. Thanks.